Request to review a revised plan for 700 Glades Road.
700?
700. The one we approved recently, and we'll have plans. We can hand out plans.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? We have the DPW stormwater cleanup, storm cleanup that we wanted to
Yeah,
discuss.
we had a scout that has a meeting tonight, and we're hoping to
Let's
get
do it
that,
right now.
that's it.
Great.
Do you want to accept the agenda
Yeah.
first to get started?
Do I have a second?
I make a motion to accept the agenda with the add-on of 700 Glades Road.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. You're up. Hi.
Hi, I'm Jake Foley, and I'm from the Scouts with Troop 7 in Scituate. And
Jake.
I'm working on my life rank project, and I was just going to come here and see if the town had anything that I could possibly do for my life project.
What sort of projects would help with that? What did you say, life ring?
Life rank project?
Yeah.
That's one rank before Eagle.
Oh, great.
Oh, rank. Yeah, oh, okay.
Life rank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Weren't you a scout?
No.
No, it was, it's a great idea, though.
Yeah, yeah.
So, working on a trail would be an appropriate
Yeah.
application of what you're doing?
Yep, anything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Anything.
Anything.
Careful. You better be careful.
How old are you? It's been 30 years or so.
14?
Yeah, okay.
Good for you. Why don't we do have a number of projects that we'd like to, we have some existing trails that need maintenance. We also have a couple of pieces of property we've recently acquired that could use a trail. Maybe it would be a good idea for us to make a little list and then get together with you informally, if that's okay.
Yep, that's good.
And want to make sure that that you comply with whatever you have to for your requirements. All right?
Do you work alone? So whatever we're asking you to do, you're going to be by yourself, so it can't be too overwhelming.
There would be maybe 20 people, 15 people.
Oh, 15.
Whole bunch of scouts, yeah.
Excellent, Smithers, that's great. Great news, okay.
Okay, so it could be a nice size project.
It just has to be about 6 hours and 1 day long. That's really the only thing.
Okay, okay.
Terrific. So,
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
just leave her in contact with Carol?
Do we have some contact information? Why don't we do that? And so 6 hours a day's project. We have a number of places that could use some help, and maybe we'll talk about it at the end of the meeting and come up with a couple of things, and we'll get in touch. And how soon do you need to do this? Or what is it, whether, I mean, do you need it in the next couple of months, or?
Just within maybe a month or so.
Okay. All right, maybe a good
Great.
time to do it over the school vacation or something like that. Great. Yeah, we certainly will. I appreciate your willingness
Thanks
to
a lot
do
for
that.
thinking of us,
Thank you.
appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Do
All
you have any
right.
friends that needed one as well?
Maybe, actually.
Yeah, send them our way. We're,
Yeah, yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
There's a number of scouts coming into the life rank area that are looking for projects.
That'd be great.
So that,
We'll
keep a list in mind, I guess.
we'll put a little one together, and then, that'd be super, really appreciate it.
yeah, we'll put the list together. You can tell us what's appropriate and doable, and we'll go from there.
It's just, they cannot use power equipment. Scouts are not allowed to use power equipment.
Okay.
They're not allowed to use that. It needs to be something that they manage themselves. I mean, we're just there to make sure nobody gets hurt. They manage it themselves. They do project management totally themselves, as well as getting the tools and supplies and equipment together. So it's totally self-funded. If it costs anything, they have to raise the money for it themselves. Probably clearing trails and just running equipment from your house. But if you have a number of them, just keep a list, because we'll probably send a few more this way.
We could get a member to go out ahead of time and flag something or mark it, and
That's
then
part of it.
you'd have a good idea of what to do.
That's part of it. And Jake in particular is anxious to get it done in the next couple of weeks, so it's something that would be somewhat weather dependent and somewhat not.
Yeah, we certainly will get that ready together ASAP. And do you mind if it's not a brand-new trail, maintenance and cleanup and stuff like that of some of them?
No, that's fine.
That,
There just can't be any danger involved, that's all. They can't pick up stuff that's
right.
toxic or dangerous.
No, we don't have.
No, we don't want that.
No super fun
We'll leave
site.
I
the
hope we don't have that on the trail.
All right, we're not going to send you to Hammerock, okay?
Come on.
Thank you, that's an inside joke, Jake.
Dear God, tell me the TV's not on.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll be in touch by the end of the week or sometime next week, we'll let you know.
All right, thank you.
Okay?
Thanks again,
a lot.
Jake.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
Considering
Take care.
this.
Have a nice
Appreciate
Christmas if we don't talk to you. Thank you.
it. So we have an RDA for Harrington Jr., Chief Justice Cushing Highway, construct and approve detention basin.
Yep, I think,
Is anybody here for that?
All's out in our lobby.
Frank, do you remember what this was called when they were in a few years there?
This building project?
Yeah, because.
I don't think they ever had a name.
Yeah, because we were trying to find the old file.
On your agenda, because I wasn't where I could.
These are the sites off
I don't wanna
3A
take-
by
that's
Tech
perfect,
Factory
thanks.
Pond.
Yeah, up the hill from the caddy's house,
Thank you.
on the same side as the board.
It's probably better on
Over
that
there.
side.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Did you want to do the RDA first? We usually do.
rearrange things.
No, this is good. On December 18th, during the 6:15 meeting, the Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of William Harrington Jr. for a determination of applicability of the Massachusetts General Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws to construct an approved stormwater detention basin on property located at Chief Justice Cushing Highway, 42-2-26A-26D. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Hi, Bill Armberg, I'm here with Paul Marabito, and Paul explained this, Bill Harrington and his wife own this property. It's already been approved by the planning board. There's a couple different scenarios of permits in effect for flexible open space thing, and there's a detention, proposed detention basin. I'll turn this over to Paul.
Back in between 2004 and 2006 or 7, there were 2 special permits issued for the property for the yellow line. One was for flexible open space and one was for common driveways. In both cases, the stormwater system was virtually identical, and then all the water is captured from the roofs, the yards, the driveways. It went into a series of storm scepters.
Where are we? Where?
On Route 3A,
This is
Yeah.
going down.
It's right across from the church, right down from, on the backside of Old Forge Road, as you start to head down towards the reservoir.
Church.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Up here is
Mm-hmm.
Doctor's Hill. This is the Butler House. We put a new system in there last summer. And there's 18 acres on the west side of 3A. And both projects were virtually identical as far as the stormwater. It all met the BMPs. We're totally outside the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. Both projects were thoroughly reviewed by the planning board consultant, Dave Nyman. And again, this is the stormwater basin at the bottom of the hill. It goes virtually the length of the property line, which is from here down to here. There's a small lake here that the outfall from the stormwater basin would go through a series of riprap. And outfall here is about 105 feet back from the wetland, and eventually goes into Tech Factory Pond. Subsequent to the approval of the 2 special permits, the abutters appealed the project. I believe This abutter was one, and a separate issue, she filed an RDA with the commission to have the wetland line determined. We found no wetlands, the only wetlands we flagged were on our property, we did not go onto her property at the time of the work. And you can see the wetland line here pretty much followed, and ran parallel with the edge of the water and Tack Factory Pond. In this location here, it's spiked up and then it came back down. There's an old road that goes through here. This area here is all saplings. It was used at one time, I don't know, for a construction yard or something of a similar nature. But the wetland did come up, and it put a portion of the stormwater basin inside the 100-foot buffer zone. This is the 100-foot buffer zone here. This RDA was appealed by Mr. Harrington, and the DEP had a sidewalk with Brad Holmes, Brooke Monroe, and Gary McCutch, and they modified some of the flags in this area here and 2 flags in this area here, and the rest of the line stayed the same. A plan was prepared by Ross Engineering showing the approved line in the field after the site walk, and that's what was issued with the final superseding determination of applicability. It wasn't until after the work was done that we realized that there were wetlands on their property that placed this portion of the basin in the 100-foot buffer zone. The purpose of this application is that request that if this basin is built, that the work inside the 100-foot buffer zone, and a small area within the 50-foot buffer zone, be allowed to be constructed with a RDA that we submitted. The reason we're asking for that is because the project has been reviewed twice for each project, and the only work is for the berm, for the stormwater basin. You know, the area of the water is in this area here, and from here down to the wall here, this is the stone wall, which we cannot encroach upon onto the abutting property for obvious reasons. But the earthen berm that's required at the bottom of the hill for the basin will be placed within between 50 and 100, and there's a small area within the 50-foot buffer zone. And again, the purpose of that the purpose of the berm is to contain the stormwater runoff that comes from the uphill area, which is treated, and there's further treatment inside the basin, then eventually flows out and down to the pond.
Pat, do you have any input on this before we go through the members?
Yeah, this predates my time here, so I went through the record, and the superseding determination of applicability has a positive determination from DEP. And, you know, 2 or 3 different spots they say that a notice of intent should be filed. And what Paul's mentioned was that finger wetland that came up, it ends up, it's like 27 feet or so from the wetland resource area, you know, the grading for the detention basin. So, I mean, just looking at it, if I came in and knew, I'd say, gee, it's within the 50, there probably should have been a filing at some point. But I think the question isn't whether they need to file, it's whether it's an RDA or an NOI. But the other thing that the state mentions is they haven't checked for riverfront area, and I know there's a river somewhere in that area. I haven't been out there, so I'm not sure exactly where that is. But in your package, I think on page 2 of 6, do you guys have the full? On page 2, on the superseding determination, on the positive determination, has the 4 boxes checked. So that's why it seems like something needs to be done, and the state needs to, you know, approve what we're doing.
So this is under the flexible open space plan, this whole project?
Yeah, it looked like it was gonna be outside of all jurisdiction. I mean, it's all upland out there. And, you know, they designed it that way. And then at the end, the abutter said, boy, there appears to be wetlands here, and it turns out there were. So kind of kicked them into a surprise area.
How much of this is already done?
Hasn't started yet.
Okay.
A lot of the work in our jurisdiction is grading for the detention basin. So, yeah, just the gradual slopes and the, but it does involve clearing of trees within the 50. So.
To answer just a question on this, and again, this is strictly wetlands, is this site is actually approved for 8 different duplex house lots. And the feeling of the planning board and other ones would be better. And so it's also, there's also a permit in place for 3 common driveways. And there are septic systems approved for each individual of these lots, but for environmental reasons and whatever, they thought this is a better way to do this as opposed to doing 3 driveways, or as opposed to doing 8 driveways, as opposed to having 8 individual septic systems. In other words, on the individual lots, under the bylaws at the time, it isn't required that you have any drainage system because they were Form A things, but nevertheless, a whole drainage system was developed, you know, because it's environmentally better. Is that fairly stated, Paul?
What is the treatment, you mentioned treatment of the water, what is the treatment process, or what is it just going through the riprap, that's the treatment?
No, there's a series of storm scepters on the uphill side. I mean, that entire 18-acre site is all upland, but as part of the stormwater requirements and the planning board rules and regs, we provided some grass swales, there's storm scepters, there's deep sump catch basins. That's all prior to the stormwater basin. Then the stormwater basin itself, by its very nature, is going to provide an additional level of treatment. So whatever wasn't treated prior to the basin, it'd be treated in the basin before it exits out that very long tail of riprap that you see there. And again, that was reviewed by the planning board's consultant twice, both for the common driveway application and the flexible open space.
So how much do we have inside the 50 and the 100? I mean, do we have square footage wise, or I mean, how much of this is?
There's about 1,200, about 12 to 1,500 square feet between the yellow line and the first blue one. And then between 50 and 100 feet, 50 times 200, that's probably 8,000 or 9,000 square feet just by eye. And again, the work inside the buffer zone consists of building the earthen berm. I think it starts at elevation 45 and it goes up to 52. It's about a 4 or 5 foot high berm. What it does is to start at the stone wall, the yellow line, it'll slope up. There's a small road around it that's required under the stormwater regs, and then from there it slopes down into the basin where the water would, where the stormwater would be. So again, the only work in the buffer zone is to create the earthen berm for the basin.
On the backside of the basin where the grading takes, are there any options for that? Is there flexibility? Could that be graded different so there wouldn't be as much tree cutting in the 50? You know, just the way the basin is.
The 50? No. No, the reason is, we're also in the Water Resource Protection District, and they require a 3-foot groundwater separation for the bottom of the basin, and the hill starts going up. So if we were to push that basin uphill, we would have to bring that whole basin up probably another 2 or 3 feet, including the lower part. So I mean, I believe that's a 4-to-1 slope which they require. You can't use a 3-to-1 slope in the Water Resource Protection District. That's in the zoning bylaw.
But what I'm talking about is not as much moving the basin. There's a lot of grading and changing of this area here, which is at the top of the basin, maybe some of it. You know, I mean, the basin is sloped up, then you have a flat area on the top. Is that something where there's flexibility and that could be left with trees or vegetation rather than clearing it out as far as the, I guess it's a wall or something on here?
Well, the side slopes are planted on the basin there to stabilize it.
I mean, they're clear, I mean.
But the trees that have to go, I mean, you can't have trees on the side of a berm like that. They would not be stable.
It would.
There's an
No.
open space plan too, because this is part of a flexible. So the project was designed to save as much open space as possible. It's just a question of obviously whether that's within your buffer strip or not.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause, I mean, we haven't seen that either, so I mean, I think that would be helpful. And the other thing is when DEP checks off the boxes saying you should file an NOI, then we really can't say, well, never mind, do an RDA unless they change their mind and decide.
So DEP is already in their review of this?
They haven't reviewed it recently. This is a past review.
When was that?
This was several years ago.
February of '08.
Was it the same plan?
Yeah. Yes.
They weren't even reviewing this plan. What they
No.
were,
That's what I'm saying.
what was happening at the time is, I don't want to speak, is one of the abutters had some issues with this, and the abutter asked for this. There was not, subsequent to that, the abutter, there aren't any issues with any of the abutters. So this is one of these things that kind of took on a life of its own. It wasn't that our client was asking for it. It was during the phase of things when there was some issues with the abutters, which have been resolved since then.
Well, it would seem to me, unless something's changed, if DEP is looking for an NOI, that we probably should go with that. I don't see how we can not go with it.
Right, can I address that box?
Sure.
I spoke to Patrick this afternoon, and he pointed this out, and I said, it is a positive determination, because the only thing that they were identifying was the wetland line. And in their file, I spoke to Greg DeCesar late this afternoon, and he said that is an error, and he was gonna call you and leave you a message and say, in essence, that the commission could, in fact, approve this with an RDA. He said there's some errors in what they checked off on the boxes here. One was being coastal storm flowage, which there is none. We're not in the riverfront area. That was looked at when we went before the planning board. It's one of the issues that came up, because had we been in the riverfront area, we would have had to file with the Conservation Commission. The pond is not considered to be a riverfront. The riverfront would start at the beginning of Tack Factory Pond, where the stream enters the pond. And I plotted out a copy of a plan, and USGS plan, I don't know if you can see it here, but Stearns Road is the subdivision road that's just uphill of it. This is where the stream enters the pond. This is Stearns Road, right here. This is Old Forge Road. I just drew that red line in. This is where the stream enters the pond. The riverfront would be from here back. Now, this drawing here, these are the houses on Stearns Road. The roadway is here, and the beginning of the stream is about in this area here. We would have to be within 200 feet of that. We're probably 500 to 600 feet away from the beginning of that stream to the closest point of where we're doing the work.
Do you have anything from the planning board during that part of the review where they, they checked it out and said, all right, you're out of the riverfront, you don't have to file? We don't have any of this information.
No, that's something that we looked at before we did the project.
Because, we need to verify things, so.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can I ask a question? There is going to be substantial clearing in the 50-foot buffer at the bottom of the retention basin for the grading and everything. So I don't know if I'm out of guilty, but I would say you'd at least have to give us some mitigation for clearing in the 50-foot. I mean, that's a good size area there, that circle, that half circle.
Don't forget, though, that actually the commission can increase the buffer zone when it's adjacent to a water resource area.
Well, I understand that, that's what but I'm saying, something should come back for that amount of clearing.
Paul?
Paul, the first question I have, it looks like you're not that much into the 50-foot. Just to make your life easier, right out of the box, I was curious why you didn't look at contouring that berm and just getting completely out of the, 50-foot no build, and now you're just in the 100-foot.
When we did the project, we didn't know there were wetlands down there until the project was appealed, and the abutter on the downhill side filed the RDA to have the wetland line confirmed. It was at that point that the buffer zone showed up on the site there.
Right, because it kind of has to go there. If you look at the contour lines, you start up top at about 100 feet. And it,
No, I
Yeah, it's
understand
the
that,
natural
I'm just
flow,
looking for
when you're talking
something
mitigation
back
and
for it.
stuff, it looks like with very little movement in the berm, you could just get yourself completely out of the 50-foot.
And then be in the 100.
to meet the requirements of the stormwater regulations, what we probably do is to put a wall there, along, just uphill of the 50-foot buffer, because there's a road, because you have to have the road around the bottom of the basin there for maintenance and access, so the only way around that, and to keep the basin functioning the way it's intended to, and meet the regulations, we'd probably put some kind of a wall there. I mean, the wall wouldn't be that high, because it isn't that far, it's about a third of the way up the berm.
How wide does the road have to be for maintenance?
Pardon?
How wide is the road going to be for maintenance?
I believe it's 8 feet.
He said that this box isn't appropriate, but don't these still
I
apply?
would say.
Yeah, okay, so would that,
Well, one of the things that Paul had there's all kinds of things that possible they can do, but the history of this was, it was such a long, involved, hurting and appeal process, and I mean, literally, Mrs. Harrington died during the course of this project. And Mr. Harrington died shortly after the appeal ended, and so their stomach for this is, and again, we'll do whatever's possible, but stomach for this, we have the permits, we can go get building permits to build them in 8 lots right now and do no drainage. And so, the gist of it is, if it's absolutely necessary, then maybe they'd consider that, but, you know, this has been such an arduous, expensive process, nothing to do with you guys, because I know it's your first look at that, but that's the answer. It isn't that, you know, Paul didn't think of it or whatever, everyone's kind of exhausted from what went on.
Can I ask a question, Pat? If this project is in the buffer zone, is the commission responsible for the review of the stormwater for this?
I think that's already been completed. Dave Nyman was hired by the planning board to look at it. You know, usually if both boards are involved, there's a few additional questions that we ask about, you know, wetland impacts under DEP regulations.
Right.
But it sounded like it was a pretty thorough review of stormwater.
Because we're being involved after the fact now.
Does the planning board approve the stormwater for this? So this whole plan has already been approved?
It's just the detention basin coming, where you now know that you're in a buffer.
I mean, there's actually 3 projects: the common driveway special permit, the flexible open space permit, and we have the permits for 8 two-family homes, including septic systems.
Yeah, there's a wetland flag on there, flag 20, that wasn't flagged the first time around, and then it ended up being, you know, 20 or 30 feet closer, or maybe 50 feet closer than what they
Right.
expected. So.
can I clarify something? Do you mind? I'm sorry. So, Paul, you said that the DEP superseding determination of applicability, they checked A, wrong box, 2B was, they think, checked erroneously. But 1, 2A, and 3 are still applicable, right?
To the extent that they apply, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, that would require an NOI if they apply. If we agree that they apply, then that would require an NOI, right?
What it says in number 1, for example.
Yeah.
You know, it says, it said the area that's described on the plan, which was the wetland line that they finally agreed to. It said that's an area subject to protection under the Act. The area subject to protection under the Act is the wetland. Okay, and what it's saying is, if you're gonna remove, fill, dredge, or alter that wetland, then you have to file a notice of intent. Well, if you look at the plan, and where the, you know, the wetland is off-site, we obviously can't go onto her property and do any work. We can't even do work in that small buffer zone that's on her property, because it's off-site. So there would be, clearly, there could not and would not be any alteration of the wetland that's on her property. 2A simply says that the boundary delineations that are being confirmed are specified on a plan from May 8th of 2007. That was the plan she had her wetland scientists prepare, and then we also prepared a plan that showed both lines, which is that blue line you see on the plan, the lower blue line. And that was submitted and became part of the superseding determination of applicability. 2B, I spoke to Greg DeCisa, And I told him we weren't in the riverfront. He described where the riverfront would be. He said the pond is not a riverfront, which we know. He said if there's a stream coming into it and a stream exiting it, he said where the stream enters the pond, that would be the end of the riverfront. And I just showed you the map. It's actually way off to the left of the site. There is no coastal storm flowage because we aren't near the ocean. He said that was an error. As far as number 3, he looked at that and he felt that was an error. He told me that they would issue a revised superseding determination of applicability because he found some errors in it. He was going to call Pat and leave him a message and essentially say, one of the things he was going to say was that if the commission wanted to approve this under an RDA, they could do so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of the things with no delineation having been done, that we haven't seen, we know the effort is to keep out of the 100, but we know there's no streams, vernal pools, riverfront, anything on this parcel. If when you got it, you assumed it was all upland, maybe there wasn't a full wetland resource review.
For our
For
site?
the whole site, yeah.
There was. We had Bob Gray from Sebastian did one, and then Brad Holmes did one.
Looking for all resources beyond just
Yes.
BBW?
Yes.
Well, that would be helpful to have. I mean, yes, that would be, we don't have it, so we're just
Because
relying on.
I know when we filed this application for a special permit, every agency in the town gets a copy of it for review. Conservation did as well. Vinnie looked at it, and he agreed that there were no wetlands on the site, on our site. We didn't go off-site because we'd be trespassing.
Right.
The only one
You
we,
have a fully developed area to the west of this, so it's only towards the reservoir, and it looks like it's been delineated now, but this is a pretty steep hill, so there's no wetlands or anything. I mean, I walked in there back when they were doing,
also, people were doing perk tests in there going back to the early 80s, and I know they were down by the lower stone wall, so I'm assuming they would have had that looked at too, because of the setbacks from a septic system from under Title V, from a wetland.
And you said Greg commented on the riverfront. Was he looking at an inlet, or was he?
No, Greg explained to me where the riverfront would start and end.
Oh, just
which-
under the law, not for this.
Right, and we knew that, and you can see the line of the Tack Factory pond there, it actually keeps going past our site, and I gave Frank a copy of the USGS map, it shows where the stream would start. It's essentially in line with the road, which is off the sheet, so.
yeah, this is what he was trying to do is.
Could we do a subject clarification?
Well,
The revised superseding order.
this
And I
plan,
think
the definitive open space,
What happened, look at it, 'cause I don't have it for, I don't know what reading to.
shows the Tack Factory pond.
But yeah.
That's off the assessor's map,
That's the revised.
which is never been upgraded. With, the reservoir was built after this plan was done, on the other side, what they did was to put a culvert in here and essentially dammed it up. And the water comes back, the stream that comes in starts about the end of Stearns Road. That map I gave you is a new map.
Okay.
And you see Stearns Road right there where the house is? I just extended the line, this is about the beginning of the stream going in.
Gotcha.
This
Yeah,
is,
you can see that, you can see the road here.
Yeah.
And this.
this is Stearns Road. So if you bring it down,
Yeah.
the stream starting about here.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see that.
Okay. Well, do you have any thoughts?
My personal thought is if maybe we get, have you been out there to look at this, Pat? Or,
I've been on the yard where the wetlands are.
you know, make sure we verify the wetlands, and then, you know, I think the simplest way, if you contour around the 50, now you're not even in a no-build or a resource area, and you don't disturb it, I don't see a big problem, you know, get a new drawing, that's my personal opinion.
We could do that with a short wall and stay outside the 50-foot buffer.
Right, now you're using an RDA, you're not in a no-build area, and
That makes sense to me.
Anything else?
Well, do we want to wait for the revised superseding plan from DEP or not?
I mean, I think, I would like to verify with DEP that they're okay with an RDA and this form may have been checked incorrectly. I mean,
Okay.
right, this would be all subject to that.
To verification.
and if there's anything showing that the rest of the site has been looked at, and there's no resource areas, then maybe we could be looking at the area around the basin and doing maybe something like what Paul said. I mean, I usually have more information to look at. If there's any information from the original work by Bob Gray, we could get some of that.
Okay. So we can continue this, and
Give
you're
info
gonna
to Pat.
talk to DEP.
Right, if I talk to DEP and they're backing this up, then should we have these guys go ahead with looking at a redesign down there? Or-
I would say I think
3.
that's appropriate.
Small wall, yep.
And then maybe for the area between the 50 and 100, we'd look for some plantings and things along the slope of that detention area.
We could do that up to the road,
Right.
but we couldn't go past it, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
should we
So how
do-
much time do you want to
Probably
continue
do a
this?
month. 'cause of-
You think you're going to get much of an answer out
No.
of the DEP between Christmas and New Year's?
You won't even get them to answer the phone.
So it's like a
What
month.
do we
like,
have?
till January.
22nd.
Got
would be the-
January 6th, and then we,
22nd.
after that, it's January 22nd.
It's January 22nd, give you ample room, ample time to get all the stuff that you need. Okay.
Okay, very good. So I make a motion to continue the RDA to Harrington to January 22nd. There's no time on that.
Second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
That's a Wednesday, right?
yes.
Um,
Yes, it is.
I think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know. Do we have a,
It's already been read because it's a continuance.
okay. Very good. So next up, we have a continuation for wetlands hearing for 121 Indian Trail. It's Patrick.
Hi, Bill Hornberger wants to.
A long time.
Don't bother to
It's been a
move.
while.
I'm with Marty Nova, a wetland scientist. Barbara Thistell, unfortunately, couldn't be here tonight. I am with Joan and Jim Fitzpatrick, the owners of the property, own the property more than 50 years, longtime Scituate residents. And I'm going to turn this over to Marty. Do your thing.
Step up to the plan. Project's located at 121 Indian Trail. It's on the south side of the road. North side is the water side. The whole project is a three-bedroom, single-family home with a detached bath. Innovative septic system that's been approved by the Board of Health. This pavement driveway, pervious pavers around the home, and then the area, this light green is actually proposed grass. Just real quick, there's a couple of buffer zone lines on here. We have the 100-foot buffer from the bordering vegetated wetlands down here, and then we have the 50-foot buffer here. We also have a 125-foot buffer from a potential vernal pool that I identified when I was out on the site in August. Just a little bit about the project and the stormwater. Mr. Ornberger mentioned that Barbara Thistell couldn't make it. The project is subject to stormwater standards because it's filed in the bylaw. and Barbara and your reviewing engineer gone back and forth. There's been some changes made to the original plan that was filed with the notice of intent. I talked to Barbara today, and she told me that they were down to minor details with the stormwater management design on the property, and that Merrill Associates Josh Bowes was basically, his opinion is that very down to the very minor details, and it could be handled in just another quick plan change. I don't have a copy of the report, so
I
that's.
would, just to amplify on this, I was just looking at Pat was just kind enough to give me the report, and I think what Josh Bowes is down to is he recommends a couple things that could be conditioned. Barbara Thissell told me that she's already talked to them, and the three things he set forth as conditions or to do that we're in full agreement with them.
Yeah, that included clearly marking the erosion control line and marked as a no disturb zone. And I believe section 7B included as an addition. Unfortunately, I don't have I've seen the report, I don't have it with me. I wasn't able to bring it with me, but I have seen it. Pat?
Want a copy?
The report.
Yeah, thank you. And, go ahead.
Okay, now, sorry, real quick, the erosion control line is this heavy dash black on this plan. Just real quick about the bordering vegetated wetlands that actually located off-site on town of Scituate land. I actually completed the wetland delineation in August of this year, and based on the transitional vegetation out there, a lot of wetland indicators. I did soil. I looked at the soils. We actually took a spade and dug pits. Actually, just upgrading a flag number 1 and upgrading a flag number 4 in 2 locations where I thought if someone went out there, they'd say, why is the flag where it is? And in your notice of intent, there's field data forms that basically document that the soils in those 2 areas that we did are, by definition, non-hydrant. We're getting close, but by definition, it's non-hydrant. And just a little point about August of this year, there was there were plus 6 inches of rain at that point since June. So I saw this site, it was fairly wet still in August. I was able to really look at the wetland hydrology that way as well. The potential vernal pool, I did hang a flag out here when I was here. There's a classic looking area devoid of vegetation off-site that looks like to me it has persistent standing water in it every year and could potentially be a vernal pool. So I hung a flag, and from that point on, they designed the project around that. And that flag is right here. The pool is actually this side of that flag. So.
And how far off the property is that pool?
That pool off the property, it's 20 scale, it's about 30 feet off the property. But from the project, it meets the town of Scituate bylaw requires 125-foot setback from a pool for any work. And
That's the 125.
the edge of the system,
So it's good.
septic system is 120. Actually, it's 126 feet from the wall associated with the septic system. So it does meet that setback. So, a little bit about the site. I think everyone's might know there's a lot of ledge out here. That's why it was designed the way it was. They're adding pervious pavers where they can. They're adding grass where there was bedrock, basically, in the impervious pavement driveway here. And then up front, you have a proposed grass basin that is part of the stormwater management system that Merrill Associates reviewed, and I think is addressed in the report that you have. I think that's just a summary of the project, and I'm available for any questions.
Excuse me, Pat, you read the report, obviously. Do you have any outstanding questions.
Right, I
but-
think what Merrill had said, Josh posted, Merrill had said was that it was a comprehensive stormwater report that was submitted by Barbara, and there was one area that was gonna be used for, it's like detention, but there was some ledge underneath it. And he thought that that area could puddle up, and if there was several storms in a row, so he'd like her to take a look at revising that. And she said she would be able to do that. The other thing was if the water's getting directed out onto Indian Trail, we want to make sure it doesn't come down Indian Trail and then enter in the low spot to the east, which, you know, there's a butter's property down there, it's a real low spot, so that we gotta make sure that grading takes care of any off-site. With the wetlands, I was out to the flag with one of the commission members, and we walked it. There is an area where you expect the wetland to be over further, but the flag goes in a straight line, and Marta said she's done soils. We haven't verified that, but it's, you know, it may be that the soils are, you know, not typical, and they have jogged in that direction. The other thing with the vernal pool is there's areas down around flags 3 and 4 where there's no vegetation, where there's staying leaves, where there's, you know, roots elevated, that, you know, there's no way of knowing whether that can be a vernal pool or not. I mean, I think it's a big wetland area, and to determine a boundary for it it's kind of hit or miss, you know. I think we have to be careful that we rule out other areas as vernal pools at this point, so.
The only question I had on this project, and it's more just curiosity, the leaching field, is there a reason that's 11 feet off the shed? I'm just looking at it and I'm saying, okay, if that vernal pool is a little bigger than what it is there any way that we could get the leaching field completely out of the 100 and a little farther away from the 125?
One thing's Penny, which is on this, is there's actually, it was demonstrated that you could build it was required under the Board of Health regulations that you demonstrate that you could build a conventional septic design with a reserve area.
Okay.
After that was demonstrated, what has actually been approved is a hoot system that provides treatment, and it also has a rubber liner, so none of the effluent would move in that direction anyhow.
Yes. I was just curious because I saw the 11 feet, and I'm here just in case that vernal pool was bigger come springtime. But I do know the
Right,
hoot
and so,
system you're talking
yeah, this
about.
treatment, they have that, and as a matter of fact, there is a Board of Health restriction that goes on acknowledging that there's a hoot system being used.
Okay.
Well, just relative to the vernal pool, I know it doesn't show very well by one flag, but, I mean, the pool, you know, goes in a, what is it?
Some clarity on these questions.
Southeasterly direction from that flag location.
Okay,
So,
southeast,
I mean, it's a fairly large area, but falling away from the project. Pat had mentioned the Hummock Hollow topography out there that's throughout the whole wetland system. You know, when I was out there, you know, in my opinion, I think that the pool where the activity would occur would be in the area that I flagged. I did check the Mass GIS potential vernal pool map. There isn't any potential vernal pool in the area, but, you know, that doesn't mean necessarily there isn't. But, you know, I know that they asked me to look at everything when I was out there to cross my Ts and dot my Is, and, you know, so I did look for any signs of a potential vernal pool, and, you know, and I did find, in my opinion, that, you know, there was that one area that.
So suffice to say is, like, Marty was all over the site, because, as a matter of fact, in her research, is like, there were 2 recent houses built at 44 Cavern Road and 136 Indian Trail.
Yeah.
They didn't identify any vernal pool. And so, in other words, so we did the diligence and did it, and we designed it such that even if it is in a worser case scenario, we meet all the
Yeah.
regulations and criteria.
Yeah.
The definition for vernal pools isn't the clearest either. I mean, it's a ponding area, in most years contains water. Other years it may flood more than that, you find in further, more dispersed areas. So if it were certified pool, there would be flags identifying where it is, and we can measure off those. but what Marty has found is the potential. So we're looking at, is it potentially here or is it potentially all over the place? So it's a
Well, it
little
might be
bit,
something that we do, because that is town property now. That was part of the Hubble property we purchased a couple of years ago. And maybe we will get that pool certified or check into it more closely at the appropriate time of year in the spring, when you might have eggs. So, we'll see.
Questions?
Bill?
No, I'm good.
No questions?
Lisa?
Nothing?
I would think we need to get these last few issues totally clarified and agreed upon.
Well, the only thing was, I've just read and looked at the report that Merrill
Right,
had.
right.
But, you know, we closed the hearing. We'll accept, as he said, you can condition.
Right.
All the things the consultant recommends, the condition, we'll agree to the conditions.
That would be part of the condition right
Yes.
there, is that?
Exactly.
What other questions would you want inserted, Pat?
I think that's possible to do. I mean, not having the engineer here to ask the questions and say, you know, is this possible to do? You're going to be able to recreate this detention so it does infiltrate. The other thing would be, I mean, really to check on the vernal pool, you can do it later. You know, we could say, well, we could accept this for now, but we reserve the right to look if the vernal pool is much closer than we're, you know, whether closing it until we know that, or...
Yeah, but you're gonna have to wait till spring to, and I think that's a little asking much. With it, I mean, the building isn't near the pool.
Right, and they've identified it, and they've offset.
You know,
it from-
look at how far away the building is
Yeah.
from that 125.
It's a conservative plan, so.
I think it is, so I kind of feel as though, no matter how big that is,
Yep.
I don't think it should stop us, but we definitely want Merrill's stuff done.
Yeah.
But I think this would be when they're all on.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience that wants to, has something to say? Sir, would you identify yourself?
Yeah, Gary Banks, 128 Indian Trail. My property's cattywampus diagonally across from 121. From my discussion, I'm assuming the Indian Trail runs east and west, and the front of the proposed house will face north. My main concern with the development of this property has to do with drainage. Collective Indian Trail from Gannett Road to Cohasset has an underlying ledge with rocks and boulders showing over most of the area. Kent and Walter Briggs bought this area from Timothy Halley in 1651 and 1658. He described the land as pasture and woodland, not cropland. In the deed descriptions and the tax rolls up until the present day, the land was always pasture and woodland, never cropland, and clear rocks to be useful for growing anything other than naturally occurring grass or pasture. On the plot plan, I believe the placement of the vernal pool to the southwest is an error. It should be located further to the north. The wetlands to the west of 121 Indian Trail has standing water occurring at least 10 months of the year. Is the reserve area for the septic system located at test pits 7 and 8? Does the reserve area have to meet the same restrictions, i.e. distances from wetlands, as the primary disposal area? I would hope that you not refer me to the Board of Health. This is an issue regarding conservation, and you should know the answer. Test pits 7 and 8 are located in a westward sloping crevice between two large rocks and boulders. This crevice drains directly to the wetlands and the vernal pool. Is there an underlying and connecting strata of ledge between the two sides of the crevice? Even if a barrier is installed, I feel this drainage is still a threat to the wetlands. I believe the phosphorus, lead, and effluent and other goodies from the septic system will drain from the septic area down to the probable underlying ledge and then follow the crevice to the wetlands. After this, the runoff of nitrogen and phosphorus from the use of lawn fertilizer. All this drainage will go down to the wetlands and flow westward to a pipe that drains northward under Indian Trail, down Wood Island Road for 100 yards, and then dumps directly west into the marsh at Parsonage Meadows. From, I would hope, a thorough site inspection of the construction of 136 Indian Trail, you will notice that the final elevation of the front and east side yards have been established. The grading as the water from the front and side yards flowing directly east into my property, turning left 90 degrees, and they proceeding north down the slope directly to the marsh. Once again, lawn fertilizer residue will be introduced into the marsh. Before the construction and eventual clear cutting of this property, I'm talking about 136 now as an aside, there was no drainage onto adjoining land. The crevices among the rocks and ledges and the scrubby trees and bushes kept everything in place as Mother Nature intended. The scrubby trees may not have been perfect specimens, but they did the job of preventing runoff. The plot plan shows the construction, this is 121 again. The plot plan shows the construction of a 3-bedroom house and a 20 by 30 shed. This area will have to be clear cut and excavated using explosion. A backhoe is not going to do the job. To put in a poured concrete foundation. What is to prevent the 20 by 30 shed from being turned into a second floor apartment, but therefore more flow into the septic system? I know there are regulations for these additions, but as we all know, things happen. I see the plan calls for drainage control devices to be installed around the property as per state regulations. What happens after construction is complete and the occupant moves in and starts to, quote, improve the lot or remove the scrub trees and the undergrowth? You will have a lot much like what happened in 136. You will have totally bald hilltop. You only have to look at what happened in 136 Indian Trail to understand my concerns. From day one, this project's been a disaster. Where are the drainage controls for this property? Water has found its way on the Henry Yates property on the north, and to the property on the west, and eastern to my property. I asked the Conservation Commission to do their job and conserve. Conserve our wetlands, our marshes, and our forests. Do not permit 121 to be developed. Thank you very much.
Would you like to answer?
Yeah, just to respond to a couple of Mr. Banks's things. The reserve he's referring to is a little confusing. Is on the plan with the with the Board of Health, it shows a reserve because you're required to show that you could do it, but the food system doesn't have any reserve. It's built where it is, and if for some, whatever, it's a treatment, it's a good technological system with very few things. It has a rubble liner, as we discussed, so the reserve is a non-issue. As far as the other things, and again, these are kind of anecdotal, is the town's consultant and our engineers have reviewed this and made sure that it meets all the town criteria, state criteria along those lines. What has happened at some unrelated property, assuming the state of facts as stated is correct, is, an unfortunate thing, but I don't think it's fair for us to, be smeared with a brush of an unrelated property, and it's the same old issue is whether we're designing a 3-bedroom system for a 3-bedroom house. If for some reason there was an increase in bedrooms, you got to go through the entire Board of Health process, state process, and every other process. And so it's like anything else. You could hypothecate that what can happen in the future, but we've designed for what's being proposed. If something different is done, you have to comply with that. The other fact is that whole neighborhood has a high degree of ledge. What we actually have is a situation where we meet all the drainage requirements and all the other things. But in addition to this, hey, we're making this a less impervious surface than exists presently. We're actually increasing the drainage per the thing, increasing the ability to retain, to train water on the site. And as far as the conditions which Maryland Associates, we've already said it will comply with all of their things to their satisfaction. That could be a condition in our order of conditions because we absolutely agree with it. And there's no intention, as I said, Mr. and Mrs. Fitzpatrick have owned this property and paid tax on it for over 50 years, and they're longtime Scituate residents. They certainly want to make sure that anything's done in full compliance with any regulations.
Thank you, Pat.
Did you say that Board of Health doesn't require the reserve for this project? Would be planning, did you say, or was it?
No, they showed that they could have the reserve. What Barbara said to me, that in the event, is in some unlikely weird event this failed, what would happen is there'd be a soil removal within the barrier and a replacement of soil.
Okay, so.
She said technologically that's how they do it.
I'm not familiar with the root systems other than they are used in ledge areas, and I
Right.
didn't know if you can't, it doesn't look like that's an area you could excavate. It's just
T,
an
I believe.
identified area. I don't know if that's-
Right, and if they wanted to build another system closer to a resource area, they'll have to be back in here again,
Right.
so.
And I guess from what Barbara told me, before you can propose an innovative system, you have to show that you can do a conventional system on the lot. And that reserve area was was part of the conventional system that they had to show first before they would even consider the innovative system, which ultimately, that's what was approved. That's how I, understand it.
Sir?
Jim Blackburn, 101 Indian Trail. She's right, but under a conventional system, they'd only be able to put one bedroom there. That's why they decided to go with the hoop system.
Mm-hmm.
And the concern of the neighbors, what Gary said is absolutely accurate. And as far as tying it into the house across the street, which a lot of people have a lot of issues with, I think what he was trying to articulate is most of Indian Trail is ledge, and what isn't ledge is packed soil. And I think everyone would agree with that. I think the hoot system solves the problem, or the issue, I won't say the problem, of the septic. But now the concern is the drainage, which you're leaving open a little bit. And I think that if you leave it open, it has to be addressed and looked at hard, because it's just a tough lot, that's all.
Thank you.
And it's a high lot where the drainage is going to go to Gary's property, to my property, and to the house beside me, because it's up in a hill. So I'm saying it can be done, but it has to be done right.
Thank you. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I respond to that is absolutely the drainage calculations have been reviewed and accepted, and to the extent is that there's some tweaking, as you see, there's a small tweak that's done there, then Barbara will do whatever to the full satisfaction of whatever the commission's consultant says.
Pat?
Not that I like extra meetings, but it would seem like having the engineers here to answer some of these questions, because a few things have come up beyond what he has reviewed. I mean, there may be some questions around the ledge that if he's asked by commission members or by members of the neighbor, residents in the neighborhood. And then if Barbara and Josh would be in attendance to answer. Because this is, we do have a site nearby that it did not go right. And, this is a ledge area, and we're trying to make sure that we protect the resource areas and also the abutters under stormwater. So without any engineer here, there may be some things that we're not covering.
Paul?
No questions.
Lisa? Any questions?
I have a quick question. Where does the effluent go from a hoot system? Where does it go?
Can you answer that?
Where's the effluent?
We don't
There's the
do
effluent,
the,
there's a drip line, as far as I understand it. Greg, you can hear me from speaking wrong. I'm making the unauthorized practice of engineering. It's with the drip line with the hoot system that it infiltrates into the soil by virtue of the drip line, isn't that correct?
This is a drip system with a hoop connected to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the hoop replaces a conventional septic tank. It's an aerobic treatment, okay? And with that, the state typically allows you one of 3 credits. They allow you a reduction in the groundwater table, they allow you a reduction to the impervious surface of the ledge undercrop, or they allow you a 50% size reduction in the size of the system. The leaching component, being a drip system, is typically placed only 6 inches below the ground surface. Approximately half the water infiltrates into the ground, the other half is taken up through the roots and evaporated off through the vegetation. To propose a system like this, you have to show that you can design a fully compliant standard Title V system without any of those state credits that I mentioned.
Can I clarify that? You have to show that you can design a system of the same size and capacity? So it's not that I can just show I can design a 1-bedroom system at one end and then a 3-bedroom system for the hoot system? No, okay.
No.
All right,
So,
thanks.
right.
So they had a pergola 3 system, 3 bedrooms under the old system.
Yes.
Anybody else? How badly would it affect you if we continued this to the next meeting and made sure that we could have the engineer here and Barbara here, I hear enough concern on the part of the neighbors that I think it would be helpful if they have a chance to answer up and at least be heard before this is closed.
Well, let me ask you a question. If we did do that, would it be possible to have the conditions drafted so that we would be able to close the hearing, assuming that everything is copacetic, at the next hearing and vote it?
Yeah,
I would think so.
we could do that,
I
I'm
would-
not saying if we don't close it because.
Right,
something
you're
comes
assuming
up.
it was-
Whatever everything is, yeah.
Yeah, we could have them
Right,
written out.
the answer to that is, you I'm always concerned about, quorum issues and things as long as we're gonna have sufficient number of
Yeah.
people, because we didn't, last week, we did.
And that was,
That
yes.
that was,
It was
an
her
odd
fault, actually.
It was my fault.
Right, and so.
Oh, it's my fault.
Right, so we would be on for like that next hearing on.
January 6th, but I would want to make sure that we could get the engineer and Barbara here. And
Yeah,
I assume,
Barbara can be here, and I'll have her coordinate with John.
and
And she
I just think that's a
got the answer.
fairer way to do it at this point.
And then
Okay, so, we need a motion?
So we need a motion to
I
continue
will
to
make
6
a
January.
motion to continue to January
6th, that is a Monday.
That is Monday, 121 Indian Trail, was it?
Yes.
Yeah, 121 Indian Trail, rebuild.
Second?
In favor?
Oh, at
Oh, sorry.
6:45.
6:45.
I'd also like to go and check the soils if it's not too frozen out there. I don't.
Good luck on that.
Fine.
There is.
Have your soil information.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you. Have a good holiday.
I didn't understand where the gentleman spoke. Where did he come up with the vernal pool in the right place? What was his?
He didn't back it with facts,
Oh,
it was
yeah, all
opinion.
right.
It was strictly opinion. The second guy was pretty good. Made sense.
Your animal, so to speak.
He's running around.
Trying to run around.
He's running around.
Well done.
Is it Herring, 21 Town Way, extension, install a tight tank? On December 18th, 2013, at 6:40 PM, the Town Hall Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Situate Code of Bylaws, regarding the application of Michael Herron to install a tight tank on property located at 21 Townway Extension, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
My name is Robert Crawford. I'm representing the applicant, Mike Herring. Basically, this lot is a 5,500 square foot lot on the easterly side of, the westerly side of Townway Extension. The easterly side is devoid of houses at this point.
You think?
Yes. And it's an existing two-bedroom house, and we have designed the tight tank accordingly, based on design requirements, which is 500% of the design flow. An 1,100-gallon tank would be required. We're providing a 2,000-gallon tank, heavy-duty, H20 loading, basically for strength, and also it provides more ballast than a standard tank, because the walls are thicker and the bottom of the tank is in the water table. The tank will be waterproofed. All the inlets and outlets, holes, will be flush mortared with hydraulic cement. We have put the tank on the highest part of the lot because the area is subject to overwash, I think, on a continual basis. I know I was over there the beginning of the week, and it's changed quite a bit since we did this topographic survey. We do not have Title V approval at this point. I believe Jennifer has approved the plan, However, it has to go to a public hearing because it is a tight tank, and it also has to go to the state for their concurrence. So, in any event, we have to continue the hearing.
What's there now for a system, Bob?
The existing system, according to the owner, I could find nothing on record, but he indicated to me that, I know that the existing pipe currently exits the southeast corner of the structure. It's, the reason for the putting the tight tank in is because the existing system was destroyed. I'm not sure it was this last winter's storm or whether it was the previous year, a storm took it out. The existing system, according to the owner, was put in after the blizzard of '78 and consists of a 1,000-gallon septic tank and a leaching pit, which, based on the grade that it comes out of the house, the bottom of the pit would probably be in the water table and not qualify as a approved Title V system today.
But you couldn't locate a tank, a 1,000-gallon tank on that site, or just, it's buried?
Yeah, it is buried, I guess.
Or it got washed out to sea.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, no. It might be washed in a neighbor's yard, but it won't come out to sea. Yeah.
We didn't see any of those show up on Kent
No?
Street.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll try to answer any questions you may have.
Any?
No, I don't have any.
Bill?
What's to get, just as a matter of curiosity, what's to keep a tight tank from washing away?
Just the dirt you
It's
pile around
just
it?
the way it
There's
is.
usually a footing around it or an apron, and they bury it and get all the...
Because this is like right on the beach, right? Or,
Well, I think there's probably a pretty good chance that the water goes up that far.
yeah,
On occasion. I
Yeah.
don't know how often, but I know on this side of the property over here, there was about a 2-foot drop-off and then a gradual nice sand there, which when we were here before, it was a lot more cobbles than sand. And-
well, it would certainly be an improvement over the system that we don't know is there or not, right? Yeah.
Could just be going into the ground.
The tank will be waterproofed, and and it'll have a cast iron frame and cover with, gasketed top.
Just may not always be buried.
Or make it buried deeper.
Or make
Yeah.
it buried deeper, true.
Depends on the storm.
Paul?
No questions.
Lisa? Pat?
Bob, is this one unoccupied this summer? This,
I don't believe it was, no.
yeah, I think that's, we've talked to him in the past. Is there any other options that DEP considers for these? Is it always a buried tight tank, or do they sometimes go with the raised, above flood elevation tanks?
Well, there's no area on the lot that's above,
Not up there?
I mean, you could put a tank theoretically up above the flood elevation, but then you'd have to have a leaching area. Or I suppose you could put a tight tank up there, but
Up in there, yeah. Because I just wonder how DEP goes about deciding what they're going to allow on a beach like that.
Well,
It's a tough spot.
last year, we did one on the house to the north, and they approved that one,
Yeah.
so I have no doubt but what they would approve this one.
Is there one person up there that is DEP that is in charge of these?
I really don't know.
But regardless, this has to be continued anyway, pending DEP, right?
Yeah, can you continue to next meeting, or?
I think it'll be longer than that, because Jennifer hasn't given me a date for the Board of Health
So
hearing
you
at
can
this
do
point.
it for the 22nd? Try for that?
We can
And you
try.
can always let Carol know. We can-
Yeah,
Yeah, if you don't have approval, just let us know and
We'll move it on.
continue. Is there anybody in the audience?
I don't think so.
Pretty good here. Bob, that tank looks like it's just a regular tank. Should that have like a foot or something on the bottom to keep it from being buoyant? Is there an issue
Well,
with the water table
we
there?
did buoyancy calculations, and based on the extra wall thickness and roof and bottom thickness,
It complies.
it does comply.
Okay.
The weight of
You
the
could, you could,
Weight of the
you could
tank,
make
yeah.
it more,
Displacement.
I should say, less buoyant by putting in a, like an extended base tank, which I think the base goes out about 6 inches on,
Right.
all around it, the perimeter of the base.
If it's heavy enough, I mean, it's only so much, they're buying time out there at this point, so.
Oh, they are. They are, they are.
We'll see you in the spring.
So,
Okay, you want me to make a motion, Frank?
Yes, please.
I make a motion to continue hearing 21 Townway Extension to January 27th.
22nd.
22nd at 6:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Bob?
you,
Welcome.
13 Wheeler Ave Realty Trust, McKenna trustee, 13 Wheeler Ave.
will you
Raise
guys do me a
and rebuild.
favor, Frank?
Good, how are you?
Oh, go ahead, you gotta do your thing.
On December 18th, 2013, at 6:50 PM, the Town Hall Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts General Laws, Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws, regarding the application of 13 Wheeler Ave Realty Trust, George McKenna, trustee, to raise and rebuild a dwelling on property located at 13 Wheeler Ave, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Mr. Morse?
Good evening. Representing George McKenna, the trustee of the 13 Wheeler Ave Trust, couldn't be here with us tonight. This is a single-family home raise and rebuild project. The existing lot is shown in bold. It's approximately 7,229 square feet. There's a floodplain that runs across the eastern rear of the lot at elevation 13. It's a zone AE, land subject to coastal storm flowage. We also have a salt marsh that encompasses the east along the rear lot line, as well as it comes up the south boundary as well. That salt marsh was delineated by Brad Holmes this year. Off of that, we have a 50-foot no disturb zone. You'll see that that encompasses almost the entire site, the existing houses within it, the lawn surfaces, existing driveway, all within the 50-foot buffer. Topography generally slopes Wheeler Ave at the bottom of the plan here at elevation 15, slopes to the rear lot line at elevation 12, thereabouts. What we're looking to do is to put up a new single-family home. This project went before the Zoning Board of Appeals and was approved. We tried to locate the house as far forward on the lot as we could. You'll see the existing house footprint and then the proposed house footprint. We'll be reconnecting to existing utility services. This is connected to town sewer, town water, and electric service. The driveway will be a pervious driveway, either a gravel or a crushed shell. There's no change in the grade of this lot. The topography, we're not changing at all. The house itself, the setback, the minimum setback we have from the house to the wetlands is 25 feet at its closest location. Again, the entire buffer on this property is lawn right up to the edge of the salt marsh. What we're hoping is that in accordance with section 1061, you will give a waiver on the 50-foot buffer zone requirements where there already is no 50-foot buffer on this property. What we would propose is we'd propose planting an actual 10-foot or 15-foot vegetated buffer along this portion of the salt marsh, and then along the southern lot line, putting a split rail fence 10 feet off of the resource area. Most of the resource along the southern is off-site, off our locus. The abutters submitted letters of approval or letters of support to the zoning board for this project. We understand, the sensitivity of the area though, and we're hoping that we can offer that as a mitigation package.
Great, could you just outline existing house versus new
Sure.
plan?
Existing house, right here, this gray box.
Okay,
It's very small.
Proposed, it's the black.
okay,
gold line.
thanks.
Greg, what kind of
Huge.
foundation?
It'll be a poured concrete foundation. It's not going to have a basement.
Slab?
It's going to be a slab, and what we'll end up doing most likely is on the slab, we're going to end up pouring flood openings into it. It's not in the floodplain today, but this would be in the proposed floodplain, so we're going to design it in anticipation of that coming into effect.
See, if you were using the existing footprint and going up 3 stories, I'd have no problem with this, go as high as you want in the existing, because you're grandfathered in that existing. I just have an issue in a 50-foot buffer in that sensitive particular area. You're more than doubling the size
Tripling
of
it.
the footprint with this house, and I don't know. I really am not comfortable.
Bill?
I'm going to pass for now.
Richard?
I have the same concerns Penny does in this one. I really do.
Paul?
Got to come up with an idea.
My feelings are it's basically a house lot with a house there with a developed barn. And you're not taking away any buffer zone or messing up any resource areas or causing any additional disruption except up to a lawn.
Lisa?
I agree.
Pat?
Well, we do have the 50-foot buffer in the bylaw, and the existing single-family is 30 to 35 feet from the marsh to the south and 60 to the marsh on the east. But the proposed is 25 to 28 feet and then 35 on the side, so it is much closer. And I understand what Paul says, it's not, you're not taking any resources to do it, but it's going from lawn to structure, which is pervious to impervious. So, I mean, it is gonna be an impact, there's gonna be less place for the water to infiltrate, and, I mean, we do have a 50-foot buffer for a reason. There are some exceptions made on the small lots to construct a home, but I agree with Penny.
I personally would go up and have a view.
I missed, Greg, your mitigation for building in this. What was, there's some plantings to the front?
Yeah, what we were talking about is along the eastern, the back between flags, say A1 and A6, actually providing a 10-foot to 15-foot planted buffer there. And then along the whole southern boundary from flag A6 up to Wheeler Ave, A12, providing a split rail fence. I think I hear your concerns regarding the work inside the 50-foot buffer. I am looking at, you have identified 6 specific key environmental functions of the buffer in your bylaw. The one that I see that is most critical in this case is number 5, human impact deterrence, preventing anyone from encroaching into the resource area. I think having well-maintained plantings along the back and having a fence certainly prevents human deterrence into a resource area. The other 5 key environmental functions of the 50-foot buffer I don't think exist at this site because there is no buffer today. And when we look at number 1, sediment removal, we're talking about, yes, taking lawn and converting it to roof area, but we're discharging to land subject to coastal storm flows. There's no requirements to meet rates or volumes of runoff in a case like that. We're reducing the amount of lawn, we're reducing the amount of chemicals that are applied to the lawn by replacing it with clean roof runoff. Nutrient removal, same thing, we're not proposing a paved driveway. Again, nutrient removal, we're reducing the nutrients being placed on the lawn. Fecal coliform removal. This is tied into town sewer, it's not a septic project. Temperature moderation is number 4. This would primarily be applicable if we were talking about a vernal pool location or a stream with fish habitat. I don't think you're going to have significant temperature increases by a project like this. In a salt marsh area, I don't think that's going to have an impact. 5 is the human impact deterrence, and I do understand that, and that's why I think if we proposed plantings and a fence, we can regulate that. 6 is wildlife species distribution. You don't have that in the buffer zone as it exists today, so maybe we could, again, increase our plantings and provide some sort of wildlife benefit. Those are the 6 key environmental functions that you list in your buffer zone. I think we can improve on 2 of them. None of them exist today.
Question, it's lawn up to the property line, right?
Yes.
And then the wetland, is it lawn onto the next property, all the way up to the wetland?
Yes, it's lawn right up to the wetland line.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm thinking if you planted that right side of the property, is that other property owner then gonna mow the lawn up to the wetland, or could you enhance that buffer?
Yeah, that other property to the south of us is undeveloped. There's nothing on it, it's wetland, you could never put anything on it.
So if you planted a buffer along that property line, that would probably all grow in, it wouldn't be lawn anymore, right?
You probably, yes. I've never spoken with that property owner, it's off-site, so.
Right, so I'm guessing these people were the people who were probably maintaining that lawn onto that property.
Yeah, my client's probably cutting over the lot line.
Right, so you could probably enhance that buffer and actually create a bigger buffer if you planted along the right side.
That would help.
So not just a buffer to the east, but also
To the south.
to the south.
Yeah, it's down by my house.
Yeah. It's a low spot.
Yeah. I'm looking right at it.
I have a question about the elevation. It says the date of this firm map is 2012. Is this really the elevation that's been reflected for 2013?
Well, what I reference is the map that's in effect right now, the 2012 maps, okay? As you're probably aware, FEMA has these new preliminary maps that are supposed to come into effect next June or July, I've been told. I'm also told that there's going to be a delay of 4 years on those maps.
The screaming was so loud.
Yes.
And they modeled it after the Pacific Ocean or something.
Yes.
I heard
Yeah,
the other
that
day.
was the
So
latest thing I heard, too.
This reflects what's effective today, the maps that are in effect today. Where we're building it will comply with the maps that are preliminary at this stage. You know, we're proposing to build it in compliance for that change.
It does seem that you've got a huge increase over the size of what you had there before. And I think personally, if that were to possibly be reduced and then get a good planting buffer on that south side as well as towards the east, I think it's something, I don't know, we don't want to mislead someone to think that we could do that. Would anybody else consider that?
Yeah, well, I mean, what size is he talking? Are we talking? You know,
Is he as close to Wheeler as he can be under zoning?
Exactly. It's as close to Wheeler, and it's pretty much as close to the left lot line. It could move over another foot to the left.
It's
Lot
not a
line.
very big lot.
So, no, it's not.
No, that's why the little house is appropriate.
I can certainly talk to my client and the architect and see if they're willing to change anything on it. You know, we can slide it over a little bit, like I said, to the lot line. We can't move it forward at all. But
On the south side along the marsh on there, is that Phragmites along that stretch?
I think a good portion of the marsh is,
It's all
yeah.
Phragmites
Yes.
down there.
But that would be off, most of
It's
it
all
would be off
offsite.
his property.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the question is, can this be constructed this way and not impact a resource area? So, we have the buffer, 50-foot buffer, assuming that any work in there is gonna impact it, but if you have a lawn and you're able to mitigate, you know, it's kind of a judgment call by the commission. Sometimes we try to shrink it back, let's put some mitigation, some plantings, but also maybe the house doesn't have to be quite that big.
I think it's pushing the envelope at this stage, so.
I mean, that's a good-sized house.
Yeah.
It's just south of 3,000 square feet.
That's a good-sized house.
For that location.
And
For that
what's the size of the
location?
lot?
Probably 4,000.
7,200. That 3,000 is over 2.5 stories of height.
I mean, that's gonna be a monster on that lot. believe me.
Well, we don't have.
Which I don't care
That's
about. What I
right.
care about
Right.
is that it's going from one footprint to a much bigger footprint in the 50-foot buffer. Which I understand the buffer's been altered, but it still is. I wouldn't even question it if we were just redoing in the existing.
You want to continue this for a bit?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Okay, we got a meeting when?
We have
January
one January
6th.
6th, and then
Doesn't
we
seem
have
like you're
one
gonna have much
22nd.
22nd would be it's a month.
Sure.
Okay.
All
I'll
right.
make a motion to continue, who is this? 13 Wheeler Ave to January 22nd at 6:45.
Second.
We already have a
Okay.
6:45.
Not on the 22nd.
Well, that was on the 6th.
That's on the 6th.
Sorry.
You got a good.
Disregard.
I can't remember.
Did you do all in favor?
Somebody want to second it?
I did.
Do I have a second?
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
I know you're going to do this, but I'd love to see if maybe they'd consider reducing the size of the house a little, and then talking about the mitigation
I
that
think
Paul
that's-
mentioned. And
yeah,
I
we
think
were
that,
saying definitely
Yeah.
gotta work on
so,
that.
and then we'll see you then.
House. I can plop it on the plan,
I know.
so. Okay.
All right.
Frank.
Thank you, Greg.
Greg has another project before, if we may want to do that now. The request to review a revised plan, and he has copies for 700
Sure.
Glades.
Okay.
This is 700 Glades Road. You probably remember.
Oh,
I
yes.
submitted a plan over the summer for this property. This is at the tip of Glades Road, Strawberry Point. It's beyond the gates, all the way up to the end.
Can't go out there now without permission.
All the way out at the end.
I don't remember this.
Yeah, we did.
We definitely did this.
Yeah, I just don't remember it.
This is an existing house. I came before you to permit a addition on the house, a septic system, and then a separate detached building. The commission approved the project. They've been working with an architect, kind of finalizing their plans. They're hoping to break ground sometime in the spring, and they'd like to make a revision to the addition. What we had permitted on this plan for the addition on the east side is shown in orange. You'll see that there's a box there.
Yeah.
In orange, we had permitted this addition here.
I got it.
Yep,
Yeah.
in orange.
Yep.
Okay. What they've decided is they don't want to construct it in that location. They want to shift it to the south, to the purple location. It's about an 8-foot shift to the south. And what that allows them to do, they were originally going to keep a screen porch or a bump out on the side of the building. They've decided to eliminate that so that now the addition lines up with the main box of the house. So they're getting rid of this bump out, they're lining it up with the main box of the house.
Greg, didn't we actually ask about that at the time?
You did. Back to the drawing.
Wow.
I brought,
Who caused this, then?
I brought.
That's fine.
Some pictures. This is
Yeah.
the screen, or the porch that's there. So now if we take the addition and we
Right.
slide it 8 feet to the south, it's out here. So what you'll see is, it's an area that, again, it's already disturbed. It's actually where the existing cesspool is. So now the addition would be, right in this area.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it kind of somewhat reduces the footprint.
Yeah.
It does, it reduces the footprint a little bit. It squares it up
Makes
to the main
perfect sense.
box. It's in an area that's already there. The only resource area that we had that affected this location was the coastal bank.
Yep.
The coastal bank here was really a ledge surface. It wasn't subject to erosion. It wasn't a soil embankment. It was bedrock.
Right.
So I don't think by moving it, we're going to destabilize the
No.
bank in any way.
The cesspool's already there that you gotta fill.
Exactly. So I guess we're wondering if it's okay to make this as a field change and pick it up on an as-built, or is this something that you want a full amended order of conditions public hearing on?
I think it's reduction in square footage. We can do that as
Field change.
authorized as a field change.
I agree.
I think it's a good move.
You thought so the last time.
I
too.
did!
Why they just don't
So
bring
you're
you
one and
in?
one.
I'm not the architect.
You're 1 and 1
Want to
tonight.
make,
Do you need a motion for that?
Did better than
Yeah.
the
vote on it?
Sure.
I make a motion for a field change on 700 Blaze Road.
Second.
As proposed.
As proposed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Greg, have good holidays.
Have a nice day.
Done with this tonight?
That was good strategy, bring in the one that you know we're going to check out. Oh, we feel bad for the guys, so let's give him something.
Yeah. Did they continue?
I don't know, you might have done it the other way, instead I got two very minor things. Start with this one.
We're waiting on you guys.
What happened, so
They called?
Yeah.
Who called?
Continuing this?
They didn't call, they come in, well, they called.
Oh, Adam, or?
Adam called.
Oh, okay.
He didn't even realize he was on. I think they
Yeah.
were supposed to let him know.
So how long do we want to continue?
Oh, he wants to continue until
Yeah,
1/6.
Frank's.
1/6? Okay.
Right after budgets. Tricia said this week would be bad with the maple suggestions around,
So do we want to move it to the 22nd?
Or the 6th?
they asked for the
asked.
6th, but
I think we're, at this point, we're kind of waiting on you guys because you wanted
Well,
to
we
review some stuff in
can't
the
get your
field.
decision until she gives.
So,
yeah.
So put it on the
let's go
6th.
with 22nd.
6th, and if something happens, then,
Wait a minute, we're
Oh,
getting,
are you gonna go with the 6th?
oh, I think they requested the 6th today, and I think, we said, yeah, okay. But we can change it.
Why don't we go with the 22nd? You know Trish won't get to you, so,
Well,
oh, all right.
you know what? Otherwise, we'll just be doing the 22nd, and then we'll be doing the meeting.
put it on the 6th.
So what do you want to do?
Put it on the
Put on
6th.
the 6th.
All right, I make a motion to continue 87.
They can
April
go into
to the
town hall
6th.
before that and say, we really gotta
7
get going,
o'clock.
because we got a hearing on the
Second.
6th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you.
Rosemary, what would you like for us to discuss so you can go home?
Oh, we
know.
have-
I think we
have
know.
the folder.
Good.
Right.
Are you trying to get rid of me?
I'm not, no, it's a cold night, it's 8 o'clock, and we appreciate your,
Frank's looking at you and thinking he wouldn't be here if he didn't have to be.
we know you're a dedicated soul, and so, it is Christmas time.
I think Carol gave you guys a list of streets that are gonna be plowed by Public Works. This is from our original letter
Right.
back in 2010. And the conditions are still in effect right now, and they really weren't followed to the T last winter.
No, they weren't.
I think we need to talk about it and somehow talk with Public Works and,
So what I'm thinking, yeah, I think that we definitely want to make a copy of this, give it to Public Works, copy the town administrator, copy the selectmen, say, you know, here is the approved orders, and this is the orders that we would expect any contractor, anybody else in the town of Scituate to do. If as a contractor, I went and put material onto town property, I mean, here we are taking 87 and reeling them in because they cleared a piece of town property.
Yeah.
And then the town turns around, I realize it's an emergency situation, I realize there's a lot of difficulty with it, but they need to review these and get as close to them as we'd expect someone else to do.
yeah, if they had someone on board, we could invite them to the.
Well, they
next
have
meeting,
people,
but-
they
but I
have
mean,
people on board,
they're
they
gonna
have an
yeah.
acting head of the DPW. I mean, they're not
Yeah. right,
blind
right,
ship, whether
right,
we,
right.
whether we ask for him, I think, I'm assuming it's Mr. Cafferty, and Mike Breen, who's gonna oversee that work, and have them here and say, here are the orders, here's what you're supposed to do, do you have, what are your issues, where do you anticipate a problem, and let's bang the thing out.
Should we
At the
invite
next
them,
meeting.
or just schedule them for the next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think so.
The storms are gonna start coming fast.
So here's a question I have for the commission, condition number 16. Okay,
Yeah.
you build ginormous berms in people's parking areas, does that constitute moving it back to the coastal beach?
No, because that's not, that's,
No.
Yeah.
Now, if someone wanted to
A
build
dri-
those berms, we would tell them no.
and a driveway is not the beach.
And actually, that's probably a condition that we can't issue. I mean, we can't tell them what to do with the stones. We can tell them what they can't do.
Well, we prohibit people all the time in here from doing something on someone else's private property. So when the town takes rocks off a road and dumps it in your property, we can't give them permission to do that.
Right.
But I don't think that's the issue. I don't think that people have a problem with them taking the rocks around and dumping them on the beach side.
Right, right.
Their problem is depositing them right on the edge of the road.
Oh, I mean.
But here's,
And in their
And
driveways,
then-
so you can't even pull your car in.
but you still have, you oftentimes, in these situations where you have a bad storm, it's not like you have a situation you had or that you're ready to move lots of material all the way around back to the beach. The first order of business is to get the road clear.
Oh, I get that, but in the
Right, but
past, they
after
have
it's
come back and then
clear-
got trucks and moved it onto the beach.
Right.
And then if nobody kind of squeals, they say, hey, we can save money, leave it in everyone's yard.
Or they say that there's no more money left and there's nothing they
Right,
can
I
do,
mean,
and they
if
can't
I
send
lived
somebody
there,
down.
I would have 2 giant telephone poles in front of my yard with chains across, right on the edge of the road, so that,
Yeah, I think all I'm saying is under
Yeah,
wetland
so
protection,
whatever
we
it
can't
is.
order them where to put the rocks.
Right.
But I think we can show them what our conditions say about protecting the resource and not putting them in the marsh.
But I
right, but
think-
that's why I brought that up, just to,
Right.
to have a definition. Is
But I
that,
think I personally don't want to get into telling the DPW how to remove snow or rocks or whatever. And I think to your point, it's like, okay, you can do it, but here's where it cannot go. You can't be putting it on a marsh.
Mhm.
All right? And
Right, and above that, it's a selectman decision and a town administrator. But if we at least start the conversation.
we want to protect the resource
Right,
areas
exactly,
with this piece.
right.
I hear what you're saying about them putting it on people's driveways, and certainly we would say in instances, you know, you can't work on someone else's property, but we really don't, I mean, they're working all in a resource area.
right, no, my question just was, we have a condition, you know, that's what I want to know. What is our interpretation of the condition? Because it says put it back on the coastal barrier beach. That was my question.
What
So
is-
that's where it should go.
Right, so it shouldn't go piled up at the end of a street, it shouldn't go in a person's driveway, it shouldn't be put on a riverside of Hummerock. The stones should go back in the sand from which they came, back on the beach. It says it right there. And
Number 16 was like 140 River Street, where we told them, go to Chapter 91. I mean, it's a
No, we
great
didn't,
idea.
we didn't, that,
Well, they volunteered to do
they
it.
volunteered to do a Chapter 90.
Right, and then we said, okay, that's a condition, and that's why we went forward, and that's why we didn't get anywhere. But 15 and 17, we can certainly do. And 16, we can bring it up, and we can bring in the public works guys and say, you know, what do you guys think can be done to ease the
Well,
problem?
we don't want this material hauled away.
Right.
Oh, that's the last thing.
No, absolutely
No,
not.
they've never done that.
So.
Yes, they
It can't
have.
go, it can't stay in the yards, and it can't go
Right.
on the marsh, on the riverside.
So these are one choice. Right?
So
Yeah.
where's it gonna go?
right on the beach,
So I'm wondering
back on the beach, that's where it came
if it
from.
would make sense to try to establish some reasonable time frame after a storm and say, okay, within a, whatever the time frame is.
There's a lot of difficulty with that, because if you get storm after storm after storm, I mean, you gotta be fair about it. They gotta clear it first. They may not be able to get it all back for a while. I mean, that's,
Well, whatever the reasonable time
Yeah, I
frame
know.
is, yeah.
And
No, and that's all I was asking to clarify before you get involve other forums. What is-
Hmm.
Does it need to be put back on the beach?
What did-
Is that the position of the commission?
happened last year, I do remember Trish saying that she has a budget of such and such. Hummerock went way over their budgeted street clearing, so there was no way anybody had the money to put the stuff, traipse it around back on the beach. I don't,
Right.
I understand what you're saying, I want it back on the beach too, but I don't know, once your budget's gone, will we?
well,
Well, but we don't,
Penny, but Penny, if they have a budget for plain snow removal, if you have a bad winter, they go over it. They don't not remove the snow.
And if that's the case, take a percentage of the taxpayers' money on Hummerock to take care of these public
but we're,
roads.
we're out of our purview now.
Yeah, we are.
do not
We are.
run
That's
budget,
true.
We do
And
not
I
run
think-
DPW. We can only say where we would like the material
Yeah.
to go.
Here's a couple of photos, I think these from Mr. Moran last year, and his concern that
And it's,
this material's been pushed up towards the South River and then dozed out over the marsh,
over the mark.
which can't,
No, and in addition to that, in places, as Rosemary knows, they not only went into the marsh, they flatten it out so it doesn't have the protection it used to have.
Yeah, no,
15-foot high piles of,
I think
Yeah,
this
actually,
goes
this is the
beyond
area right
us
here.
and
They,
beyond
it
people.
literally used to have
all
about
we
4
do-
feet,
here's
and now
our
it's
purview,
flat straight
Penny.
down.
We make conditions of what we want done.
Yeah.
That's it. Nothing else outside of that
Hmm.
is our purview.
And we really can't force them.
Well, but we're not talking about that. It's
Yeah.
about what does conservation, the question is, what does conservation want to see done? That's all that it's in our authority.
We'd like to
decide.
see the material
A couple
return back
days-
to where it was.
Yeah, where it
a
came
couple
from.
days ago, when the tides were high and the water came through, I don't know if you saw it, the water came pouring down the street.
Yeah.
I literally got out, put boots on, and I started walking down the street to see where the water was actually coming through from the
Yeah.
ocean side. And then I watched several different places where the water could have naturally gone right over into the river.
Yep.
But it couldn't, because there's these big piles of stones. So then the water changed its direction, picked up more force as it went down, looking for an opening. And they can't keep piling the stones on the river. So then, from there, the water starts filling up into people's yards, because it can't go where it's intended because of these piles. And the fencing that these trucks take out, they don't replace,
I hear
which
you.
allows them to pile the stones out even more.
But-
All we can do is show them our orders, and then what, we can't make up the But we
Bless you.
can show them our orders that we want it there on the
Right,
beach.
but when you have a contracted person that is working for the town, and their responses, I don't know what you're talking about.
Why we need to meet
Again,
them.
this is, we have a set of orders. When we do a set of orders, we have a pre-construction conference. We expect that there's a set of orders on the job and that everybody working on that site is familiar with those orders. That's what it says in the boilerplate of our order of conditions. There's a piece in there that says everyone should be 100% of what's in those orders. So for an machine operator to answer, I don't know what you're talking about, is in compliance with the order.
They're gonna follow Al's directive before they follow our conditions.
So this was an email from the head of DPW last year, dated November 19th.
2012.
So, 2012. So the northeast storm last week left large deposits of sandstone on Central Ave in 250 block and shut off access to 30 or so families. So that's number 200 to 250 on Central Ave. Shut off access to 30 or so families at the north end of Hummerock. The highway crew, supplemented by a rental bulldozer and operator, opened the road by moving the debris to either side of the street. A number of residents have hired local contractors to move sand and stone back onto the beach in front of their cottages. We expect that additional winter storms will cast more debris onto the road. And when this occurs, we will again clear the streets by moving the debris to the sides. We have no current plans to move stones, sand back to the beach until the storms abate in the spring. At that time, we will clean up the sides of Central Ave. This plan recognizes that the winter storms will frequently block Central Ave and require DPW resources to keep it open. Expending extra money to tidy up after each storm event is not a good use of public funds. Returning the sand and stones to the beach multiple times during the winter is very expensive, and since the town must rent large equipment with operators. Additionally, every time heavy equipment drives onto the beach to dump the debris, we further risk damaging the natural shape of the barrier.
No, that's good.
There's nothing wrong
The
with it.
question is, though, in the spring, did they come and move
no,
the
they-
stuff?
they
No,
did
it took them
not.
till August to get half of it, and some of it's still there.
They didn't, I can vouch
That's
for
the part.
numerous houses.
That was
They absolutely
November,
did not.
before we had the winter we had.
Right.
Yes.
Before February.
No, he was right in his forecast.
No, but that, actually, that's, I don't know how everyone else feels. I
no
get that.
problem with
You
that.
better first clean it up, but in the spring, if they put it back on the beach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but, like I said, we can show them our orders and talk with them, but then basically it's out of our hands. And it's up to the
Yep.
powers that be.
Rosemary?
A couple of things. Everyone understands that, to begin with, many of those homes are people who are seasonal, which is why they're not your screened.
Yeah.
Secondly, last year, the rocks were piled up to the second stories of these homes. That is a public safety factor. It's a problem. Whether they're there or not, that is a public safety issue, and that supersedes everything else according to mass regulations. We all understand that in an emergency, the road has to be cleared and it has to be pushed somewhere. But within a reasonable amount of time, if you go over there now, there are piles in front of the houses. They're not
Still.
tremendous at all. But if you allow that to build up all winter, especially if there are really major storms, it will go back to being 2 feet high in front of people's homes. And
20 feet high.
if you get a fire, whatever, that is a public safety issue. No one's asking, I don't think, the DPW to come through after every storm and push it back out on the beach. We do have an open lot that in the past has been used to stockpile and then push it down in a very logical location. Ideally, we need someone who can contour the beach, who can, if the town has to hire someone to tell the workers how to contour the beach to our best advantage. That would be very helpful. And pushing it out into the marsh, although it was denied, that's what's happened.
Yes.
Pushed it out. Pat knows I went to talk to the Marshfield DPW to see what they do with these situations. I did not talk to them because I first met with the conservation agent, and the first thing he said was, putting the rocks out into the marsh is killing the marsh, it's not allowed. Okay, so someone agrees with us. I don't know.
Well, we talked about what goes on in different parts of town, and again, I think we should deal with our orders, but just thinking about what happens from, say, Minot all the way to Humrock, take some individual areas, there's really not a lot of washover that occurs until you get down to the far side of Surfside Road. There is some overwash, it's minimal, and that usually gets deposited back over the seawall. It just isn't that great of an area. There's some washover at Glades Road that just gets filled back in. What the town did stop doing, though, was when you leave Surfside Road, the whole Man Hill Barrier Beach, they're not altering that anymore. It's washing over and they're leaving it alone. And so that functions as a barrier beach similar to Humrock. And what they're doing now, which whether we agree or disagree, years ago that would get bermed back up. It would get pushed back towards the ocean. The last storms, they didn't move that. And they used to use an emergency order to clear like Man Hill Road and at the end of Stone Ave. I don't believe the town did that at all this year. They just put a new road back over the top of the stone without moving it back towards the beach. They felt that was simpler. If you keep moving to the south, you don't have much happen again in terms of washover until you get down into 3rd, 4th Ave along Oceanside. In those cases, they typically pile it up in that staging area sort of between 10th and 6th. There's an area that the town will haul overwash from, say, the lighthouse back, and they'll pile it up there. And then that material was, I believe, hauled back to the seawall at the lighthouse and some of those places along that way that had erosion. So that material got hauled to those areas, and I assume that the town did that. I don't know for certain, but that's where that material went. And then it doesn't happen really again around the harbor or the cliffs because they're high enough. It's more debris that it winds up going to landfill, or to the transfer station or wherever.
And you have Peggotty, Townway.
And then Townway, so in that Inner Harbor Peggotty area, that washed over, and the only thing that they removed was they cleared that drain or that back creek so that it wasn't flooding at Gilson Road, because so much overwash had gone over into the marsh, naturally occurring. And then they wound up digging out that creek so that it didn't flood at Gilson Road. So, if we think about, it's sort of conflicting a little bit, because DEP is basically saying again and again, as we look at all these individual sites, try to minimize any obstruction that would interfere with the natural movement of a barrier beach, which is inland. So we don't want to expedite it by pushing more material onto that, but what's going to happen is that material is going to keep washing over. It wants to move inland. It wants to move over that.
I don't think there's anyone who would not suggest that Humrock Beach is not acting as a barrier beach at this point. Not too long ago, There have been areas that have been defined as a highly developed barrier beach, and it's acknowledged that they don't act.
It's true, it's an altered resource and they don't.
Right.
Right. If material washes out onto the marsh, it's sad because it's killing it. And ultimately, I understand that the marsh will just keep on moving out and out and out, and eventually the material from the original will come forward, and that's the way it should work, but it.
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying this is what DEP is saying to us when we do these things. We obviously have to get it from the road, and we don't want to mechanically move it towards the marsh. I mean, that's going to happen over time anyways.
That's what DEP is saying, but.
Right, but that changes. We had DEP say, we had these berm projects where people are building dunes in front of the house, and DEP's like, that's the
Yeah.
way we're going. It just changes.
And there's no problem with moving
Right.
that. What we're really coming down to is who's going to pay for it, which is not, I mean, we should enforce the piece that we have. Don't
Right.
put it back on the marsh, and you can clear the road for emergencies, and you can't put it on the marsh. But if they deposit it on people's yards, I think that's an issue that's got to be taken up with the selectmen and the DPW. And I'm not trying to pass the buck.
I agree. But
And then
that's
they
what
need to allocate enough money to get it back
Really?
onto the beach. And we're not going to hinder that.
No.
That's fair enough.
I
As
mean,
long as somebody gets, as long as
But-
DEP is willing to discuss it, go over the details, and not just say, bam, this is the way it's going to be.
well, I think it's good for us to review the orders with DPW and make our effort to make sure that it's followed. And I don't think it's unreasonable to request a meeting to do that, whether it's those guys showing up here in the evening, or whether we meet with them, Pat, a couple of members, say,
Whatever way.
Yeah, it'd be good to get them here.
Right.
Meeting.
No, and actually, I don't think anybody here would disagree with what Al says here.
Right.
You clear it, you don't put it in the marsh, and first you clear the road, and then when the storms are over, you put it on the beach.
I agree with what he says. Right.
And-
Not necessarily what happened, I agree with what he says.
Right.
Several
Yeah.
of us watched that happen.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about what happened. I'm saying what Al's
Right.
email says. I don't think anybody here
No.
would
Right. But
grossly
what his
disagree.
email is, what his email says and what is happening are two different
Right.
things.
Right.
Because I don't think the ones who did it last year, my understanding was it was too big a project for the company that had been doing it. But I believe they had had no instructions. They must have had some, but they
Yes.
certainly didn't have enough to comply with.
And their answer was to put the stones wherever there was a space.
Right.
And that's exactly what they did. And they piled stones 10
I've
to
got pictures I
14
can,
feet
probably in
high
my phone.
I know.
Yeah.
on the marsh.
We all did, yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Rick.
We also have a liaison on the Board of Selectmen, who's, Rick Murray.
We don't,
He's
Rick.
connected with
Ah.
conservation, so,
Yeah, he's our liaison.
yeah, he can bring it forward to the Board of Selectmen, because it's definitely at that level, if it's budgetary stuff, it's,
Okay. Well, we will do our best to make sure at
See
least
if
the
we
environmental.
can get him here next meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
I can.
It can be
reach
a
out to
cordial
Rick.
invitation, can it?
Was it?
Can be a cordial invitation.
Yes, that's great.
And I'll volunteer all my pictures I've taken.
Oh, and yeah, there are millions of pictures, believe me.
Yeah, I don't think there's gonna be a shortage of that.
Yes, I think we've all
Okay.
taken pictures, to be
That's good.
helpful.
That's good.
What else have we got on the agenda?
The Glen was on there, and there was a few certificates of compliance, too.
So on the Glen, they came in, anything else south of town?
One thing at a time.
Stepchild section.
Yeah, I mean, you're well represented up here.
Yeah.
ahead.
Does anyone watch NCIS?
Yes,
Yes.
of course.
Okay. Frank is surrounded by Humrock residents. Do you know how Gibbs gives a slap upside the head?
Yes.
You do that every once in a while.
Wow, don't put Lisa next to me.
Wow.
Thanks for that.
Good night.
I think I like having Richard and Paul on either side.
They're
Put
outnumbered.
Penny and Lisa next to me, and I could just have bruises.
Would have bruises, I think.
Ping pong.
Yeah.
Ping, ping,
There's a reason the women are at the end.
All right. So on the Glen pad, Carol was good enough to pull out the
Yeah,
orders
they were
and
interesting.
highlight a bunch of
Yes.
things. And it's not going to be an easy,
Right.
just give up the ghosts. I mean, these are pretty ingrained in these orders that
Yeah.
they're supposed to have a walking piece. And it's interesting, at a neighborhood party, I asked a couple of people that live along Summer Street, you know, what's your thoughts on that? And they said if there was a trail there, they'd actually walk that trail to get onto the Bates Lane piece. I personally think if we had really good access at Bates Lane off of Indian Winds, it would be a better spot to access that property than through the Glen. But it's ingrained in their orders, and so if we're gonna change something like that,
It's gotta be
I think it's gonna have to be an
Yeah.
NOI,
Yeah.
and they're gonna have to really pursue that.
Yeah.
Can I just speak my piece on this?
Sure.
Because I missed it the last meeting. The reason.
Wait, where were you at the last meeting?
I was.
The Bahamas.
Laying in the sun.
Yeah, so no, you can't.
Yeah, right.
The reason we.
No, you can't.
Oh, well, I'm gonna anyways, Frank. I'm your senior now, behave yourself. The reason we were very adamant when that project was going through, that was part of their mitigation. They got a huge concession. They were allowed to fill wetlands, put a road across it, to get in there to develop. One of the reasons that I remember very vividly, this was an opportunity that we might never have again, to go out onto Summer Street, have a connection to another neighborhood of the trails in the Bates Lane area. And possibly someday, there might be some land on the other side of Summer Street, and it would give people an access. And when I looked at you on TV this afternoon, the last meeting, and Dave Thomas, is it, what was his name?
Dave Johnson.
Johnson. And anyway.
Dave Thomas owns Wendy's.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he's dead, he's dead too.
Well,
He was in there. He was in there.
Still.
He was making a comment that, where it says from Summer Street to Bates Lane, and I thought I heard him say, he was talking, coming right behind the development and connecting with the Bates Lane extension, I call it, behind Indian Winds. That was not what was originally planned. Originally was having a trail going from Summer Street all the way to Bates Lane proper. In those orders, you will see they have to take that wire fence down that is around the town's property, but that was part of, for them to do that. The reason we wanted that access out to Summer Street. We'll never have the opportunity again, possibly to have a piece of property, a entrance on Summer Street.
Well, wasn't the crux of his argument that it was going through environmentally sensitive areas?
They weren't real concerned about environmentally sensitive
Well, no, what they
areas to fill
were
in.
saying was it was very unspecific and they have a better plan, but it actually is pretty specific.
It's very,
Right.
it was very.
That's what he was
specific.
saying. He said, you know, it
I
was
mean, the
just, he
trails
was
are
acting like it
great.
was kind of just, we're gonna have trails and we got a better
Yeah,
idea.
but we wanted it to go from, I guess it's east to west or west to east. Am I?
Depending which way
But,
you're walking.
well, Bates Lane proper, not to Bates Lane, the extension at the T there. Bates Lane proper, where the gate is, with the fencing for the bird sanctuary. That was the original goal there. And,
You have to show me the piece in there where it says they're gonna remove the fencing.
it's there, it's on the orders, it's
Okay.
right after, or right before where it says they have to do, what number was that?
I don't know now, I didn't print them on.
No, I got it right here.
Do you have the orders?
Number
Yeah.
60.
Yeah.
The fence surrounding the property shall
Yeah.
be removed and disposed of properly.
They had to do that.
Okay.
And,
See, if you don't tell people
I
on
know.
TV before you go on vacation when you're leaving, they wouldn't schedule to come in
well, I
while you're
don't
away.
know. But I did,
You had 22 hearings the week you were gone, Penny, 'cause
So
they
we
all-
can
I know,
mandate,
they all came running in.
Ask
But,
him,
you
don't
know,
ask
the
me.
trail system, and I heard Howard, and I heard everybody, yeah, those trails are wonderful, but there was a specific reason.
Okay.
We want another access and to run from one end to the other.
Do you want to convey the message?
Well, Howard and Dave were gonna lead a walk out there, and then it snowed, and so we kind of left it to them to show us what they have in mind, and you definitely should be there, because
Well, but what Penny's saying is that there's no
Too bad.
point in even having that thing with them proposing some new trails if they've got all this to,
And we have the
Unless they
scouts
do both.
now, they want to do trails, we can have them going off in different directions.
well, I don't know why they, I mean, if,
Six,
Right, they
Pretty
need to
specific.
know that, yeah, if the commission's position is gonna be, the condition is from Summer
that's what he
Street.
came in and asked us.
Yeah.
Would we consider it? And we said, well, give us a proposal, but what I'm hearing now is that that's not an option.
Carol, did we send that to
to
Dave
me, no,
Johnson?
it wasn't an option,
So he received that, the minutes?
it wasn't.
Right, we're still, at some point, gonna have to probably walk the site with them to nail something down, but they-
Right.
they
It should go
probably need to
from
be
one
more
side to
prepared,
the
like
other.
going from the end of the circle, you
I
know,
don't,
up.
you know, but they don't want us.
Whatever.
But I think
out
that's
there,
what it
right.
says, is that there's no defined, it's not like on a survey,
Yeah,
but we're gonna walk through there and try to remain in open spaces so other things don't have to be cut or cleared or anything like that.
but we can mandate somebody to have private property open to the public?
well, we specify easements in here, that they're gonna grant
They're gonna give us an
easements.
easement.
Yeah,
Yeah, this one, in these conditions, they say, yeah, we agree to give you open space, and then when we're ready, we'll come back and we'll write out
Yeah.
the route.
yeah.
It
Trail will
was-
go to Bates Lane, will require some sort of easement,
And that's Bates Lane's proper.
yeah.
It wasn't behind Indian Winds.
Granted to Conservation
Make a
Commission of
little
the Town of
alley.
Scituate, which should allow for passing, repassing, repair, and maintenance.
Yeah. And, you know, it's just another access if something happens to somebody too.
That's probably in the planning board language too, right? Of
I
their-
have no idea, but I just,
their decision.
I do remember this very vividly because I was a
Okay.
pain in the butt about the fence on
No.
Really?
that. Yeah.
I think they
No,
should.
I bet you no one else thought that, Penny.
Well, I didn't want to go out and pull the fence down. I'm getting too old for that. How are you, Nancy and I?
I kinda like to leave the fence there.
No. Come down. It's just.
I think you just got that slap in the head Rosemary was talking about.
We've argued this because, you know why? Because Frank wants the deer to get stuck in there so we can shoot.
No.
Yes,
That's no fun, it's already.
Fish in a barrel.
Harvest them.
It just,
That's
It's
gross.
not shoot them, it's harvest them.
it just creates some natural passageway.
Okay, we're
That's
on
what you said,
television,
that-
and this is the
This is,
conservation.
yeah, right.
I'm calling Peter.
Do you not know hunters? Hunters are the biggest conservationists in America.
It's only to watch them go by and take pictures. All
Oh, yeah.
Right.
right, let's keep moving here.
Boo hiss.
Okay, settle that one.
214 Clep Road, they filed the ENF, and I went through it. We have one copy. You guys are welcome to take it. The one thing I noticed that they didn't do was...
It's up to you to deal with that, Richard.
There's a water resource, outstanding water resource area. They didn't mention that vernal pool certified, and that
I
qualifies.
reclosed from that one. So
Oh, right,
we
yeah,
talked
right,
about
But
it.
that was certified.
And then the natural heritage thing, they talk about the comprehensive management plan. I started the two at the top with the...
An ENF is not enforcement, right?
Right, it is not. Looks
Oh,
like-
this is the one that we went through
Yes.
point by point?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do we have to do?
I'm gonna let them know that they have to identify that a vernal pool is on there, and that's considered an outstanding resource
Mhm.
of water under the law. So So Natural Heritage may not know that they have a certified one on there. They know it's the turtles, but they may not know it's certified, so.
So do they still have an appeal outstanding with the DEP?
It's a placeholder, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
So once you tell them that and they say, good, we're all set, they'll pull back the appeal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Let me know if they don't say that, please.
right, yeah, I haven't had a computer for 2 days, so they've been emailing me, I guess, Paul Bork and.
What's wrong with your computer?
They went to a new server, and my computer was too old, so we went to a new one, so it wouldn't, I could write out an email, but it wouldn't leave the outbox.
So they just pushed into the breakdown lane?
That's right.
Are they bringing in a teacher for you?
No, it's not.
To ramp it up?
When will you get a computer that you can use?
Tomorrow. Today, I think.
Today, it came in today.
Yeah. late
And now you gotta figure out how to use it.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's what I meant by the instructor.
That's right.
Give that to Penny.
I'll pick it up.
Okay.
Okay, what else?
Certificates of compliance, I think.
Yeah, 25 Circuit Ave.
This is on First Cliff, you know where Circuit is, right on, what a spot. That was a septic that was put in quite a while ago, plantings were all done, that's all set. And
29 Laurelwood.
29 Laurelwood, this is a house that's for sale as part of a subdivision order of conditions. They didn't have any resource areas on there, they just needed to get a sign off. And I didn't even need to make a ride out there, but I rode out to find out where it was, they're all set. Jericho is not, because this is the ones that are right down before you get to Turner on the left that have the big carports underneath.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I haven't, it was snowing and I didn't do the measurements, so I at least have to take the plan and do the measurements out there.
Should they just, do they get an engineer to send you a letter saying they're in compliance?
Yeah.
So you don't have to go out there and measure it?
Well, they get their engineer and they say, you know, basically in compliance, or almost in compliance. So- Yeah, substantially, but sometimes they haven't put in the detention basin, you know.
Okay.
So we just check off the checklist.
Okay.
So that's the only one left there.
19 Park Ave?
I added that, because it has a article already. We're
Okay.
just waiting for vegetation.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully you can,
Okay.
file it.
Where is Park?
Park Ave is off of Hadley, isn't it? It's awful.
I'm not familiar with it.
Hold the line, please.
What happened?
Park Ave?
Park.
Your computer, man.
Park?
Hold the line.
It's sort of in that area between Tilden and,
Maybe, I don't know.
unless I'm totally wrong.
No.
Where's my telephone?
I got it in a second.
That's what I thought.
What else we got?
136 Indian Trail, the money has been received by us, it's in an account.
They are just going about as slow as they can possibly go there. aren't they?
And they're still working.
Well, Pat Brennan has got the plans and he's gonna be doing it, so I told him about the cease and desist and he came in with a check within a couple of days.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's
That's
for
what we
the full
decided
amount.
that's what we decided last time, that
Right.
we were gonna wrap it up if nothing
So
happened,
we'll
right?
let Pat Brennan, if he reviews it, I mean, we may wanna put that on for the next meeting.
Okay.
And then 140 River Street, we spoke to the Corps of Engineers people. We dropped our enforcement, but they're going ahead with their violation letter. But the bad thing about that.
So why do we drop our enforcement?
Partly because of cost,
Legal
cost,
fees.
and partly because we probably wouldn't win, so.
It was
Brandon-
Chapter 91, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Brandon was saying, we have to do something with the other attorney by this past week. So I went to Tricia and I said, here's the situation, and she says, well, you know, where are we? And I said, well, the Corps is gonna get involved, and we don't know whether we're gonna win the case. And she says, well, you know.
But, so we just can't leave enforcement on it and let them take it off, or we?
The way Brandon sent an email saying that this removes this piece of it, but it doesn't prohibit us from getting back into the picture if the Corps doesn't do what we want, or if the Corps doesn't, we piggyback on it. We can still say there's,
All
no
right.
issues out there, so. But the Corps people say that looks like a violation, but sometimes they allow people to apply, like an after-the-fact filing. But I can't see they're gonna let a 76-foot wall stay.
No, it doesn't meet any of their,
Right.
yeah, requirements. It's not a
Right.
marina.
So let them apply, then deny,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's an illegal seawall.
Okay.
They just went out and did it.
Yeah, a lot of people do that stuff, believe it or not.
In Humrock.
And, oh, in the whole town.
We'll see.
Really? Not just
I
Hummerock.
would not drive to Humrock after this meeting.
Where's Park?
Off of Maple Ave, in
Yeah.
between Maple and Turner.
So between Hatherley and Tilden. And we just went in for some vegetation, right?
Yeah.
To- So when the snow melts,
Oh, I know what you're talking
mine, there's all kinds of.
Marion.
Marion, all those
Yeah.
little roads that weave through there.
about. Yeah, I know what you're talking.
You could get lost in there.
Yeah, you could. I'd stay out of it.
Okay? What else?
Hey, did you have anything up on the top?
The minutes.
Trails, minutes, open space?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of October 16th as written.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of October 28th as written.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Is that it?
I make a motion